Hi. My name is Annie Craig and I will tell you a story about my brother Bill who was captured by the Japanese and sent to prison camp during World War II. But first, let me tell you a bit about my family. My parents Frank Lindquist and Christina Christensen was both born in Sweden in a small village called Orja just outside Landskrona in the south part of Sweden. Our father Frank was born 1867 and he worked as a track worker at the railway. Our mother Christina was born 1870, and 1891 they got married in the church in Orja. Our father emigrated to America 1892 and left our mother and their newborn son August in Sweden. A year later, our mother left Sweden together with her son August to reunite with our father in Minnesota. First they live in Minnesota but then settles in Hayward, Wisconsin, on a small simple farm. Over time, the family became very large. Between the years 1892 to 1915 our parents had 13 children. August, Otto, myself, Joseph, William who was called Bill, Lawrence, Emma, Ellen, Alma, Olga, Carl, Hilda and Victor. This is me and my beloved brother Bill 1939. Short after this picture is taken, Bill took a job as a steelworker for the company Morrison Knudsen and left for Wake Island. In winter 1941 the nation was still in the midst of the Depression, and good-paying jobs were scarce. 5 hours after bombing Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Japanese forces attacked Wake Island, a tiny island midway between Hawaii and Japan. The United States was constructing a runway essential for planes to refuel on their way through the area. There were 449 Marines, 68 sailors, 6 Army Air Corps, and 1146 civilians employed by the Boise-based Morrison Knudsen Company on the island. Following the battle, 98 civilian construction workers were kept on Wake Island to labor for the Japanese. When their work was complete, they were forced to dig their own graves before being executed. The remaining defenders of the island, both military and civilian, were taken as prisoners of war by the Japanese and held for 44 months. Bill was born in Hayward 1899. He was 44 years old when he passed away in a prison camp in Japan. We have heard different stories what caused his death and I guess we will never find out the truth. The official cause of death was acute pneumonia. Mr. Raspy, a survivor from the war, was foreman of the structural steel workers on Wake, and he knew Bill very well. He gave us information about what had happened. The Japs came in on December 23, 100,000 men, battleships and cruisers and aircraft carriers, against 350 Marines and the civilian workers. Bill worked beside Mr. Raspy for 4 days and nights, loading guns, before the island was captured. On January 12, 1942, most of the men were removed and taken to Shanghai. Bill asked to be left with the 350 other men who were left behind on Wake. However, Mr. Raspy was taken to Shanghai, and that's the last that he knows of Bill from personal experience. But since he returned home, he has talked with other men who went with Bill later to Sasebo on the island of Kyushu, and he has some few details from them. Before Bill was taken from Wake, he worked on airfields for the Japs. The food was pretty good, as there had been enough supplies for a year on the island when it was taken and evidently the Japs let the prisoners have most of it. In October 1942, Bill was taken, with 250 other men, to the island Kyushu. Fukuoka Camp 18 where Bill was held prisoner was called the Death Camp. It was one of the worst camps. Survivors from Camp 18 tell that they were beaten at least twice a week. Disease ran rampant, particularly beriberi, malaria, and pneumonia. Out of the 245 prisoners who went to Camp 18, only 132 stayed alive, the rest mostly died from malnutrition which led to pneumonia and injuries received from beatings. Survivors tell that they were put into an old cement shed, away up in the mountains, where they were building a dam. There were 250 prisoners in this small building. The building did not have a floor and was terribly dirty. They arrived at Camp No. 18 the 14th of October 1942 and stayed there for 18 months. 53 American prisoners of war died building the dam. Most of them died of pneumonia. Bill was one of those who died at Camp 18. We will never know the circumstances how he died. If he suffered a lot. In memory of our beloved brother who accidentally ended up in a war, we put a memorial stone on the graveyard at home. The Soto Dam Memorial Tower, located beside the dam, honors the 53 American prisoners of war and 14 Japanese laborers who died during the dam's construction. Soto Dam was constructed between 1941 to 1944 and used 265 American prisoners of war in its labor force. Bill's name is on this plaque. Rest in peace, William Oscar Bill Lindquist. Thank you for listening to my brother William Oscar Lindquist's last years as a war prisoner in Japan during World War II.